What if you had survived the brutal chains of thrall bondage through blood and determination, clawed your way to freedom as a desperate farmer gambling everything on cursed volcanic soil, then built merchant wealth commanding ships across treacherous seas, only to discover that true power lies in the warrior's blade, where honor demands blood payment for ancient insults, and every victory creates deadlier enemies seeking your complete destruction? You've risen through 3 levels of Viking society's brutal hierarchy, learning that each rung upward only reveals new ways to fall. As a thrall, you faced whips and starvation. As a farmer, you battled nature and landlords. As a merchant, you navigated pirates and political thieves. Now, in episode 4 of Surviving Viking Age Iceland, you've ascended to Warrior-Landowner status, commanding hall and hearth, sworn men and ancestral lands. But the Raven Feast clan has declared generational war against your bloodline for an insult 3 generations old. Feel the weight of mail on your shoulders, taste iron in the morning air, and discover that honor without wisdom can destroy everything you fought to build. Your enemies don't just want your death. They want your family's screams, your followers' betrayal, and your transformation into the very monster they claim you've always been. This is warfare beyond steel and strategy, where supernatural forces, legal manipulation, and systematic terror will test whether courage alone can survive when political cunning holds the real power. Close your eyes, breathe deeply, and prepare for the warrior's ultimate trial, where every honorable choice leads toward inevitable tragedy. And the hardest lesson learned may be that sometimes losing everything is the only path to discovering what truly matters in the unforgiving world of Viking Age Iceland. Dawn of Vengeance. You wake to the cruel scrape of steel on stone as someone drives a wooden stake deep into the frozen earth outside your hall. The sound cuts through your dreams like an axe blade, while winter wind carries the metallic scent of fresh blood across your threshold. Your feet hit the cold floor as urgent voices rise from the courtyard, where your warriors gather in the pale dawn light. The sight stops your breath in your throat. Gunnar's severed head stares back at you from atop the stake, his once proud beard now matted with frozen gore that drips red tears onto virgin snow. His dead eyes hold no peace, only the terrible knowledge of what his death means for everyone who called him friend or ally. Your hands shake as you recognize the Raven Feast clan's black banner tied around the stake's base, its torn fabric snapping in the bitter wind like a funeral shroud. The message needs no words when written in blood and displayed with such calculated cruelty. 3 generations of peace between your families died with Gunnar's final breath. The war cry echoes across the valley as enemy horns blow from the distant ridgeline, their haunting notes promising death to every soul within your borders. Your warriors grip their weapons while wives pull children close, understanding that the old insult to Raven Feast honor has finally demanded its price in innocent blood. Magnus the Red points toward smoke rising from your eastern fields, where enemy raiders burn your grain stores before vanishing into morning mist. Their systematic destruction begins immediately, while you stand frozen by the implications of generational warfare that could destroy everything your family built through decades of careful alliance. Your steward brings word that 3 neighboring jarls have already declared neutrality, their messengers arriving before sunrise with regrets about previous friendship becoming impossible liability. Political isolation spreads like plague when blood feuds ignite, leaving you surrounded by enemies while former allies abandon ship before the killing starts. The Raven Feast clan's declaration means your children become legitimate targets for assassination, while your wife faces kidnapping, or worse, from enemies who prefer indirect revenge to honorable combat. Warrior status transforms your loved ones into weapons pointed at your heart by patient killers who understand family bonds better than battlefield tactics. You count your sworn men, while calculating how many will remain loyal when enemy gold and threats begin testing oaths sworn in easier times. The mathematics of survival reveal how quickly military strength crumbles when fear and greed overcome honor among warriors who serve for silver rather than genuine brotherhood. The morning sun illuminates Gunnar's frozen features, while you realize that his death represents only the opening move in warfare, designed to destroy your family line through systematic elimination of everyone foolish enough to stand with you. His sacrifice demands vengeance that could cost everything you've built. Your armor hangs heavy on tired shoulders as you understand that peaceful merchants' calculations no longer apply to survival, requiring constant vigilance against enemies who prefer murder to honest combat. The warrior's burden settles across your back like a mountain of iron and responsibility. Family in flight. Your wife's terrified eyes reflect firelight as she holds your youngest son against her chest, understanding without words that remaining here means watching children die slowly through systematic targeting by enemies who prefer family destruction to direct combat. The bag in her trembling hands contains everything precious enough to carry during desperate flight toward uncertain sanctuary. The decision tears your heart like a dull blade as you realize that warrior status makes your loved one's liability rather than blessing when enemies understand that hurting family inflicts deeper wounds than any sword thrust. Protection means separation from everything that gives life meaning beyond mere survival. Your daughter clings to your leg while asking why Uncle Gunnar's head decorates the courtyard stake, her innocent questions revealing how completely warfare shatters the peace that children deserve but rarely receive when honor demands blood payment. Her tears freeze on wind-burned cheeks as understanding dawns that Papa's enemies want to hurt her too. The sleigh creaks under hastily packed possessions, while horses stamp impatiently in snow that deepens with each passing moment. Your father-in-law's stronghold offers temporary safety for non-combatants, but the journey crosses territory where Raven Feast raiders could intercept fleeing families for leverage against stubborn warriors who refuse reasonable surrender. Your wife's brothers arrive with armed escort, their grim faces revealing how marriage alliance creates obligation to protect relatives caught in conflicts they never chose to join. Their loyalty costs precious warriors from your depleted ranks, while demonstrating how family bonds complicate military calculations during desperate times. The farewell kiss tastes of salt tears and desperate promises about reunion after victory eliminates threats to family safety. Her whispered prayers for your survival compete with children's sobs as the sleigh disappears into swirling snow that could hide pursuing enemies or conceal your family's tracks from systematic hunters. Your hall echoes with emptiness as feminine voices and children's laughter vanish into memory, while warrior business demands complete attention from survival calculations. The silence feels heavier than mail shirt or battle axe, when domestic joy transforms into liability requiring immediate elimination. Magnus the Red observes your family's departure, with calculation that reveals his own wife and children departed yesterday for distant relatives offering sanctuary. The practical wisdom of experienced warriors demonstrates how quickly domestic happiness becomes unaffordable luxury when serious killing begins in earnest. Enemy scouts watch from tree lines as your family's sleigh navigates treacherous mountain passes where avalanche or ambush could eliminate your bloodline without direct assault on defended positions. Their patient observation reveals how thoroughly Raven Feast planning extends beyond simple revenge into complete destruction of your genetic legacy. The afternoon brings reports of 3 more families fleeing your territory as farmers and craftsmen abandon fields and workshops rather than endure collateral damage from warfare between stubborn jarls. Your protection becomes curse that drives away everyone seeking peaceful existence rather than heroic death. The Watchers. Darkness brings the soft whisper of arrow shafts through shuttered windows as patient assassins test your defenses with poisoned points designed for silent killing rather than honorable combat. The iron heads embed in oak beams inches from your sleeping furs, while deadly toxins glisten on metal edges that could end your resistance with single scratch. Your mail shirt becomes permanent clothing, as sleep requires full armor protection against enemies who prefer murder to morning duels between matched warriors. The steel rings dig into flesh while preventing rest that could mean death, when constant vigilance represents your only defense against systematic elimination. The roof creaks with careful footsteps as enemy infiltrators probe for weakness in defenses designed against honest assault rather than assassin's craft. Their patient movement reveals professional training in silent killing, while you lie motionless beneath steel protection, calculating response timing against multiple attackers operating in perfect darkness. Magnus the Red discovers poisoned needles hidden in your saddle, where mounting your horse would drive toxic points deep into unprotected thighs. The crude trap demonstrates enemy willingness to use any available method for elimination, while revealing how thoroughly they study your daily routines for exploitation opportunities. Your food requires careful testing after 3 servants sicken from contaminated ale that burns throats and brings bloody vomiting within moments of consumption. Enemy agents infiltrate your household through bribery or threat, while transforming every meal into potential death sentence, requiring constant caution. The well water shows signs of deliberate fouling, as dead animals appear overnight in your primary drinking source, their rotting flesh contaminating supplies essential for siege survival. The systematic poisoning forces reliance on distant springs where ambush becomes easier, while demonstrating enemy patience for indirect warfare. Sleep comes in stolen moments between watch duties, as exhaustion fights against survival instincts, demanding constant awareness of surroundings. The balance tips toward fatal mistake when human endurance meets patient killers willing to wait months for a single moment of vulnerability. Your most trusted bodyguard dies silently in the corridor outside your chamber, his throat opened by expert blade work that leaves no sound to alert sleeping warriors. The discovery reveals how completely enemy agents penetrate defended strongholds through methods that bypass traditional military protection. Morning brings fresh evidence of nocturnal infiltration as poisoned darts appear in unexpected locations throughout your hall. The systematic placement creates atmosphere of constant threat, while demonstrating enemy capability for reaching any target, regardless of defensive precautions taken by vigilant warriors. The psychological warfare proves as effective as physical assault, when constant fear of assassination prevents restful sleep, essential for combat effectiveness. Your reflexes slow while paranoia increases, creating conditions favoring patient enemies who understand that terror weakens resistance more efficiently than direct assault. Oaths breaking. The first betrayal arrives with dawn, as Thorstein Croweye leads his warriors away from your hall, their footsteps crunching through frost while he avoids your gaze. His sworn oath meant nothing when Raven Feast gold outweighed loyalty to a doomed lord whose protection no longer guarantees survival through the coming storm. Your remaining men watch silently as 20 shields disappear into morning mist, understanding that military strength crumbles faster than rotting timber when fear and greed overcome honor among warriors who serve for silver rather than genuine brotherhood. The mathematics of survival shift dramatically with each departing sword arm. Magnus the Red counts heads, while calculating how reduced numbers affect defensive capabilities against enemies who grow stronger through systematic recruitment of your former allies. His grim expression reveals how quickly confident warriors transform into desperate survivors when oath-breaking spreads like plague through military formations. Eric Blood, Tooth's messenger, arrives with formal declaration that his warband withdraws from all previous agreements, their parchment citing changed circumstances, while carefully avoiding mention of Raven Feast threats against anyone supporting your family line. Political language disguises cowardice as practical wisdom when survival requires abandoning inconvenient loyalties. The afternoon brings worse news, as 3 more captains lead their men toward distant holdings, their hasty departures revealing how thoroughly enemy agents worked through winter months to prepare systematic isolation. Your military strength dissolves, while enemies coordinate recruitment of displaced warriors seeking new masters. Your own sworn men gather in nervous clusters, whispering conversations that stop abruptly when you approach their discussions about oath obligations versus family survival. Their shifting loyalty creates atmosphere of suspicion where former brothers-in-arms become potential betrayers, waiting for optimal moment to abandon sinking leadership. Gold flows freely from Raven Feast coffers as enemy agents purchase allegiance from warriors whose families face starvation if steady wages disappear during prolonged conflict. The practical mathematics of survival overcome honor when children's lives depend on fathers choosing reliable employment over doomed resistance. Gunnar the Short formally requests release from service obligations, his honest admission of fear earning more respect than Thorstein's midnight abandonment. His trembling hands reveal genuine regret, while acknowledging that courage has limits when enemies threaten systematic elimination of entire bloodlines, including loyal followers. The emptying barracks echo with absence as 50 sworn swords dwindle to barely 20 warriors willing to risk everything for loyalty that might prove meaningless if defeat seems inevitable. Your reduced household transforms from confident military force into desperate garrison awaiting systematic destruction. Evening brings final departures, as even kitchen servants flee, rather than risk association with marked family when enemy revenge extends beyond warriors to include anyone providing support. The isolation becomes complete when domestic staff abandons duties that could mark them for systematic elimination by patient killers. Scorched earth. Smoke rises from your eastern pastures where enemy raiders systematically slaughter livestock too heavy for quick transport, their methodical butchery ensuring that surviving animals cannot sustain your garrison through siege conditions. The stench of burning flesh carries on winter wind like incense offered to gods of warfare and systematic destruction. Your prize bull lies gutted in frozen mud, while ravens feast on entrails steaming in morning cold. The magnificent beast's death, eliminating years of careful breeding that produced the finest cattle bloodline in 3 districts. Enemy strategy targets long-term agricultural recovery rather than immediate military objectives. The grain stores burn with roaring flames that consume harvest surplus meant to sustain your household through lean months when enemy blockade prevents normal trade relationships. Each consumed bushel represents family meals transformed into ash, while systematic starvation becomes weapon more effective than sword or spear. Magnus the Red leads salvage efforts through smoking ruins where scattered grain mingles with animal blood in grotesque mixture of agricultural wealth destroyed through calculated malice. His blackened hands gather what little remains edible while understanding that winter survival now depends on enemy mercy rather than careful preparation. The sheep pens stand empty except for scattered wool and frozen blood, where patient killers work through darkness to eliminate your secondary food source. Their efficiency reveals military planning rather than random destruction, as enemies demonstrate understanding that hungry warriors fight poorly when distracted by family starvation. Your horses disappear overnight from supposedly secure paddocks, their theft eliminating cavalry advantage while creating transportation crisis for warriors accustomed to mounted warfare. The systematic targeting reveals enemy intelligence about your military capabilities and preference for mobility over static defense. The beehives lie smashed with honey crystallizing in frigid air, while dead insects create carpet of destruction around wooden frames that represented sweetness during harsh times. Even minor food sources receive attention from enemies determined to eliminate every possible sustenance option through methodical devastation. Enemy scouts watch from tree lines as your men attempt salvage operations, their patient observation ensuring that recovery efforts remain under constant threat of renewed attack. The psychological pressure prevents effective gathering of remaining resources while demonstrating complete control over your territory. Your fishing nets return empty from lakes where enemy agents systematically poisoned waters with rotting carcasses that drive away or kill aquatic food sources. The contamination creates lasting damage to resources requiring months for natural recovery when survival depends on immediate sustenance. The systematic destruction continues through night raids that target remaining food caches hidden throughout your territory, enemy knowledge revealing how thoroughly they studied your defensive preparations through infiltration or torture of captured servants. Their intelligence network operates with military precision that overwhelms traditional defensive measures. The Champion's Challenge. The horn blast echoes across your courtyard as Hoff Bloodbear arrives with the dawn, his massive frame filling the gateway, while foam flecks his beard in the manner of berserkers who embrace battle madness as religious calling. His legendary axe, Skull Splitter, has ended 43 lives in single combat, each victory carved into the weapon's handle like prayer beads counting souls sent to Valhalla. His challenge rings through morning air with ritual formality that cannot be refused without losing all honor and legal standing forever among warrior society. The ancient words bind you to combat, regardless of odds, while enemy observers gather on distant hills to witness systematic elimination of resistance through legally sanctioned murder. Your mail feels heavier than mountains, as you understand that refusing means exile and outlawry, while accepting promises near certain death against opponent whose strength legends describe in terms of bears and stone-breaking trolls. The choice becomes method of destruction rather than survival when honor demands impossible courage. Magnus the Red offers to fight as your champion, his loyalty earning grateful respect, while practical wisdom recognizes that his death would eliminate your most capable lieutenant without solving the underlying challenge. The berserker's foam-flecked grin suggests he expects easy victory regardless of opponent selection. The combat circle forms in frozen ground, where your ancestors settled disputes through trial by combat, the ancient tradition now serving enemy strategy for legal elimination of inconvenient resistance. Sacred law protects the proceedings while ensuring that victory belongs to superior force rather than righteous cause. Hrolf's axework demonstrates why his reputation spreads terror through 3 districts, as the massive blade carves air with whistling sounds that promise instant death to anyone caught within striking range. His berserker rage builds slowly like gathering storm, while religious ecstasy transforms human warrior into supernatural killing force. Your sword feels inadequate against legendary weapon designed for breaking shields and splitting helms with single blows delivered by arms thick as tree trunks. The weight difference alone suggests impossible odds, while Hrolf's combat experience overwhelms your merchant warrior training through systematic professional advantage. The first exchange nearly removes your head as Skull Splitter passes close enough to part your hair, while Screaming Wind announces how narrowly death missed its appointment. Your counterstrike bounces harmlessly off mail rings while failing to penetrate defenses that protect vital areas with overlapping steel protection. Blood flows from sword-arm wounds that weaken grip strength, while Hof's berserker fury intensifies through religious fervor that transforms pain into supernatural endurance. His foam becomes pink with spittle mixed with blood from bitten tongue as battle madness reaches peak intensity. The crowd's roar fades into distant noise as survival instincts focus completely on reading axe patterns that could end consciousness before pain registers in dying brain. Time slows while death approaches through systematically delivered blows that probe for fatal opening in increasingly desperate defense. Words as weapons. The Althing assembly transforms into battlefield, where enemies wield law instead of steel, while you stand before 300 armed farmers whose boats could strip away your lands as effectively as military conquest. Their hostile faces reveal how completely Raven Feast agents worked through winter months to poison legal opinion against your family through systematic character assassination. Thorgrim Lawspeaker rises with parchment accusations that detail 3 generations of alleged crimes your bloodline supposedly committed against neighboring families. His practiced voice carries across gathered assembly, while legal fiction transforms ancient disputes into current justification for systematic dispossession through judicial process. Your own law speaker stumbles through defensive arguments that sound hollow against enemy preparation, spanning months of careful documentation and witness coaching. The legal disadvantage becomes obvious when opponents arrive with organized strategy, while your response relies on improvised honor claims that carry little weight with farmers seeking profitable land redistribution. Magnus the Red whispers urgent counsel about procedural challenges that could delay verdict until better evidence emerges, but enemy agents planted throughout assembly ensure that sympathetic voices remain silent while hostile farmers dominate discussion. The democratic process serves predetermined outcome through careful manipulation of participant selection. The compensation demands exceed your entire household wealth by margins that make payment impossible, even through complete liquidation of assets accumulated through lifetime achievement. Enemy calculation ensures that legal remedy becomes disguised confiscation, while maintaining fiction of justice rather than systematic theft through judicial corruption. Witness testimony reveals how thoroughly enemies documented every minor transgression your family committed during decades of normal territorial disputes. Their systematic record-keeping transforms routine conflicts into evidence of chronic lawlessness requiring immediate correction through property transfer to more responsible stewards. Your supporting witnesses fail to appear after receiving midnight visits from Raven Feast enforcers who prefer intimidation to violence when threatening families provides adequate motivation for silence. The absence speaks louder than words, while demonstrating how legal warfare extends beyond courtroom into systematic terrorizing of potential allies. The assembly votes overwhelmingly for land seizure that leaves your family homeless while distributing territorial wealth among farmers who support enemy political agenda. Their hands rise like forest of spears, demanding your destruction, while legal process legitimizes theft through democratic participation in systematic dispossession. Appeals procedures offer theoretical recourse through higher authority, but enemy influence extends throughout legal hierarchy, where purchase judgments serve political agenda rather than actual justice. The systematic corruption reveals how completely law serves power when traditional protections fail against organized subversion. Your eldest son watches silently as legal documents transfer ancestral holdings to enemy supporters, his young eyes learning how quickly honor and achievement become meaningless when superior force operates through judicial channels. The educational value proves more devastating than military defeat. Chains of memory. The familiar clank of iron shackles draws your attention toward harbour workers loading your grain shipment, where 3 Irish thralls labour under familiar whip marks that mirror scars decorating your own back. Their desperate hunger burns in hollow eyes that recognize shared suffering, while remembering your own journey from chains to warrior status through blood and determination. Seamus the Red Hare looks up from ropework with recognition flickering across features weathered by exposure and systematic brutality, his whispered Gaelic words carrying memories of green hills and freedom lost to Viking raids that transformed proud farmers into property valued only for labor capacity. His presence brings unwelcome reminder of origins you've tried to forget. The overseer's whip cracks against shoulder blades that bear identical scars to marks hidden beneath your mail shirt, each stripe representing lesson in absolute obedience learned through systematic application of pain. The sound triggers muscle memory of helpless rage when resistance meant agony while submission promised survival. Your thralls whisper among themselves in Irish dialect you pretend not to understand, while their rebellion simmers beneath forced compliance that could explode into violence when opportunity presents itself. Their hatred burns with intensity reserved for those who escape bondage while abandoning fellow sufferers to continued enslavement. Magnus the Red observes your reaction to slave rebellion with calculation that reveals his awareness of your origins and potential sympathy for uprising that could spread throughout your household. His loyalty depends partly on confidence that past experiences won't compromise current authority when decisive action becomes necessary. The youngest thrall carries himself with pride that systematic brutality hasn't completely broken despite months of careful conditioning designed to eliminate resistance through psychological destruction. His defiance reminds you of mirror reflection when determination to escape overcame fear of consequence during desperate planning sessions. Whispered conversations reveal plots forming among Irish slaves who see your reduced circumstances as opportunity for revenge against master whose warrior status no longer guarantees overwhelming force advantage. Their planning demonstrates how completely current weakness invites challenges from every possible source, including supposedly controlled property. Your former compatriots offer freedom to anyone brave enough to bring them your severed head, their desperation creating additional enemies within your own household, where trusted servants become potential assassins motivated by promise of liberation. The irony compounds as origins create vulnerability rather than understanding. The rebellion spreads through subtle signals and shared glances that coordinate resistance activities beyond your ability to monitor or control completely. Their organizational skills prove that systematic oppression breeds intelligence rather than stupidity when survival depends on careful planning and patient execution. The midnight uprising begins with whispered prayers in Gaelic, while sharpened kitchen knives appear from hiding places throughout your hall, their religious fervor transforming desperation into righteous crusade for freedom that could succeed through superior numbers and intimate knowledge of defensive weaknesses. Where the uprising fire erupts simultaneously from 3 points around your hall, as Irish thralls execute coordinated rebellion planned through months of whispered conferences and shared hatred for masters who forgot their own origins in chains. The systematic timing reveals military intelligence, despite their status as supposedly ignorant property valued only for manual labor. Your bedchamber door explodes inward, as Seamus the Red Hare leads armed slaves through corridors they've cleaned for years, while memorizing every defensive weakness your household possesses. His kitchen knife drips with guards' blood, while freedom's desperation transforms servile workers into implacable killers seeking vengeance for systematic brutality. The battle cry echoes in ancient Irish as former farmers reclaim warrior heritage that Viking raids couldn't completely destroy despite years of careful conditioning designed to eliminate resistance through psychological destruction. Their voices carry rage, accumulated through countless beatings and humiliations that demand blood payment from everyone who participated in their enslavement. Magnus the Red fights desperately through smoke-filled corridors where familiar servants become deadly enemies, wielding intimate knowledge of your household's routines and defensive preparations. His sword work proves inadequate against numbers and terrain advantage, when rebellion transforms trusted property into systematic threat, requiring immediate elimination. Your mail shirt deflects stabbing blade that seeks heart, while former stable boy demonstrates combat skills learned through secret training sessions conducted beyond overseer supervision. The attack's precision reveals how thoroughly thralls studied your movements while planning assault that could succeed through coordinated application of superior force. Flames consume tapestries and wooden furnishings as systematic arson creates chaos that benefits attackers familiar with escape routes through burning buildings. Their fire discipline demonstrates military planning rather than random destruction, while ensuring that structural collapse could eliminate surviving defenders through architectural warfare. The kitchen becomes slaughterhouse as rebellion spreads through domestic areas where cooking implements transform into weapons wielded by servants who know exactly which household members showed mercy versus systematic cruelty. Their targeting reveals careful planning that distinguishes between guilty masters and innocent family members. Your youngest warriors die screaming in corridors they thought secure, while Irish prayers mix with battle cries that invoke ancient gods of vengeance and liberation. The religious fervor intensifies combat effectiveness as spiritual motivation overcomes physical disadvantage through supernatural endurance and righteous fury. Escape routes disappear beneath coordinated assault that anticipates every possible defensive strategy through intimate knowledge gained from years of forced service. Their tactical awareness exceeds your military training when rebellion operates from within previously secure stronghold rather than external siege requiring traditional defensive responses. The hall's great timber beams crack overhead as structural fire weakens architectural integrity, while systematic destruction threatens total collapse that could bury defenders and attackers alike beneath tons of burning wood. The thrall's willingness to risk mutual destruction reveals desperation that values freedom above survival when liberation requires ultimate sacrifice. Mother's blood. Olaf the Kind stands before you with tears streaming down weathered cheeks, while his sword trembles in hands that once taught you proper blade grip during childhood training sessions in your father's courtyard. The evidence of his treachery lies scattered across the table, where intercepted messages reveal months of correspondence with Raven Feast agents who purchased his loyalty through threats against his children. His confession tumbles out between sobs as he explains how enemy infiltrators discovered his son's gambling debts that could result in thrall bondage unless immediate payment satisfied ruthless creditors. The choice between betraying lifelong friendship and watching beloved child sold into slavery created impossible moral calculus that honor couldn't resolve. Your childhood memories flood back unbidden as you remember shared adventures through dangerous forests where Olaf's courage saved your life during bear attacks and winter storms that could have claimed both young warriors. His loyalty seemed eternal when tested by natural dangers rather than systematic corruption that attacks through family vulnerabilities. Magnus the Red provides witness testimony detailing how Olaf's intelligence enabled enemy agents to infiltrate your defenses and coordinate thrall uprising that nearly succeeded through inside knowledge of guard rotations and household weaknesses. His betrayal directly caused deaths of warriors who trusted him with their lives while serving your common cause. The law demands execution for treason committed during wartime, when betrayal results in friendly casualties and strategic disadvantage that threatens survival of entire household. Your legal obligation requires immediate justice, regardless of personal feelings about childhood companion whose treachery earned death sentence through deliberate choice rather than accidental mistake. Olaf kneels in frozen mud while accepting judgment with dignity that honors shared past, even as present circumstances demand ultimate penalty for systematic betrayal. His calm acceptance demonstrates understanding that leadership requires sacrificing personal relationships when survival depends on maintaining discipline through decisive action against internal threats. Your sword feels heavier than mountains, as steel slides from scabbard with whisper that announces approaching death for someone who shared your mother's milk and learned warrior craft through identical training that created brotherhood stronger than blood. The blade's edge reflects morning sunlight, like tears frozen in metal. The strike comes clean and merciful as friendship demands, while justice requires, his head separating from shoulders with single blow that ends suffering quickly rather than prolonging agony through hesitation or incompetent execution. His body collapses without sound, while blood steams in cold air like incense offered to gods of necessary sacrifice. Your remaining warriors watch silently as you clean blade with methodical precision that demonstrates emotional control while processing grief that threatens to overwhelm practical requirements for continued leadership. Their respect deepens through witnessing painful duty performed correctly, despite personal cost that reveals strength rather than cruelty. The burial proceeds without ceremony, as traitors forfeit right to honored graves, regardless of previous friendship or family connection that meant everything before betrayal transformed beloved companion into security threat, requiring immediate elimination. Leadership means choosing survival over sentiment when circumstances demand impossible decisions. Witches and nightmares. The first vision strikes at midnight as you see Gunnar's severed head speaking prophecies of doom, while his dead eyes weep blood that forms puddles spelling out names of everyone destined to die before spring's arrival. The nightmare feels more real than waking consciousness, while supernatural terror invades sleep that once provided refuge from daily warfare. Strange lights dance across your bedchamber walls as enemy sorcery sends madness through dreams designed to shatter rational thought and replace sound judgment with paralyzing fear of invisible threats. The witchcraft operates beyond steel protection or military strategy when spiritual warfare attacks mind rather than body through systematic psychological assault. Your hands shake uncontrollably during morning weapon practice as exhaustion from sleepless nights degrades combat effectiveness, while spectral voices whisper tactical secrets to enemies who coordinate supernatural attacks with conventional military pressure. The combined assault proves more effective than either approach individually. Magnus the Red reports similar nightmares plaguing your remaining warriors as enemy Volva weave spells that transform rest into torment, while systematically destroying morale through carefully targeted psychological warfare. Their magic reaches beyond traditional defenses. When spiritual protection requires knowledge, your household lacks completely. The dead speak in ancient voices that carry messages from beyond mortal realm, where vengeful spirits demand blood payment for crimes your family committed during generations of territorial expansion and systematic exploitation of weaker neighbors. Their otherworldly authority transcends human law when supernatural justice operates through different moral calculations. Your wife's spirit appears in dreams, despite her living presence at father's stronghold, her ghostly form warning of approaching disaster, while phantom children cry for protection. You cannot provide from dangers that exist beyond physical combat. The family separation becomes spiritual, as well as geographical, when sorcery invades intimate relationships. Protective charms fail against witchcraft that draws power from authentic grievances rather than random malice. The enemy vulva, commanding spiritual forces through legitimate claims for justice that your ancestors' violence created across generations of warfare. Their magic succeeds because guilt provides foundation that defensive spells cannot overcome completely. Sleep deprivation creates hallucinations that blend seamlessly with supernatural visions, until distinguishing reality from sorcery becomes impossible when exhausted mind lacks strength for rational analysis. The confusion serves enemy strategy when accurate threat assessment requires clear thinking that witchcraft systematically destroys through persistent mental assault. Your food tastes of grave earth, while water carries scent of rotting corpses as sensory corruption spreads beyond dreams into waking consciousness, where normal perception fails under systematic spiritual attack. The physical world transforms into extension of nightmare when sorcery operates through multiple channels simultaneously. The approaching madness threatens leadership capability when followers require decisive command, while your judgment suffers under supernatural pressure designed to eliminate resistance through psychological destruction rather than military defeat. The vulva understand that broken minds serve their purposes better than honorable death in combat. Or lost. Your wife's final letter arrives with Dawn Messenger, whose grim expression reveals tragedy before words confirm worst fears about childbirth complications that claimed both mother and unborn son during difficult labor at father's stronghold. The parchment trembles in hands that have held steady through countless battles, while grief overwhelms warrior training with raw emotional devastation. The miscarriage occurred during supernatural storm that vulva sent against your family's refuge, their sorcery reaching across mountain distances to strike at bloodline continuation through targeting pregnant women whose vulnerability enables spiritual assault on genetic legacy. Enemy magic proves more effective than military siege when supernatural warfare operates beyond traditional defensive capabilities. Your bloodline dies with unnamed son who never drew breath, while mother's death eliminates hope for future heirs who could continue family legacy after your inevitable demise in current warfare. The genetic extinction becomes reality when systematic targeting succeeds in destroying reproductive capacity through carefully coordinated assault on family members. Magnus the Red observes your grief with calculation that reveals his understanding of how personal loss affects leadership capability when emotional devastation threatens rational decision-making required for household survival. His loyalty wavers as tragedy demonstrates vulnerability that could compromise everyone depending on your judgment for protection. The funeral arrangements require presence you cannot provide, without abandoning defensive positions that enemy forces would immediately exploit through coordinated assault on weakened stronghold. Distance transforms grief into additional tactical disadvantage when personal obligations conflict with military necessity during desperate survival circumstances. Your wife's father sends harsh words about inadequate protection that resulted in daughter's death and grandson's elimination from family line that trusted your warrior capability for security guarantees. His blame creates additional enemies when former allies question competence that failed to prevent systematic targeting of innocent family members through supernatural warfare. The guilt compounds daily as you recognize how warrior ambitions exposed loved ones to dangers they would never have faced as farmers' family, living peacefully beyond political conflicts that attract vengeful enemies. Your rise in status directly caused deaths of everyone who mattered more than honor or territorial acquisition. Enemy agents spread news of your family's destruction throughout neighboring territories, where potential allies learn that association with your household results in systematic targeting of innocent relatives. The political isolation deepens when tragedy demonstrates costs of friendship with marked leaders whose enemies prefer indirect revenge through family destruction. Your hall echoes with silence where children's laughter once provided motivation for achievement beyond personal survival. The emptiness transforming warrior purpose from family protection into simple vengeance that serves no constructive goal. The meaninglessness threatens continued resistance when death offers reunion with lost loved ones. The bloodline's extinction eliminates enemy motivation for continued warfare, while providing opportunity for negotiated settlement that could preserve remaining loyal followers' lives. Your death becomes potentially beneficial when survival serves no purpose beyond perpetuating conflict that has already claimed everything worth protecting through systematic destruction of family legacy. Empty granaries. The starving farmer, Bjorn Iron-Tooth, kneels in frozen mud outside your hall, while his hollow-eyed children cling to threadbare cloaks that provide no warmth against winter's killing cold. His desperate plea for grain assistance carries memories of your own agricultural struggles when crop failure meant choosing between starvation and humiliating submission to more powerful neighbors. Your granaries hold barely enough supplies to sustain your reduced garrison through remaining winter months, but mercy toward neighboring farmers could mean watching your own warriors starve while maintaining inadequate defensive capability against enemies who show no compassion for anyone supporting your resistance. The mathematics of survival demand harsh calculations about resource allocation. Magnus the Red advocates seizing farmers' remaining livestock as tribute payment for continued protection services, his practical wisdom recognizing that sentiment cannot override necessity when military operations require steady supply lines. His cold assessment reveals how completely warfare transforms former merchants into systematic exploiters of rural desperation. The farmer's wife weeps silently while holding infant, whose weak cries reveal malnutrition that could prove fatal without immediate intervention, requiring grain your household cannot spare. Her tears remind you of similar scenes from your own agricultural period, when wealthy neighbors ignored desperate pleas for assistance during harvest failures. Your sword's weight reminds desperate supplicants that refusal means enforcement through violence, when peaceful negotiation fails to secure necessary supplies for military operations. The threat transforms neighborly requests into systematic extortion as survival requirements override previous relationships based on mutual respect and agricultural cooperation. The children's hunger burns in eyes that reflect your own offspring's fate if current warfare continues without resolution through decisive military action or negotiated surrender. Their suffering serves as mirror for personal losses, while demonstrating how completely conflict spreads beyond immediate participants to encompass innocent families. Bjorn's final offer includes his daughter's service in exchange for grain sufficient to prevent family starvation during remaining winter months. His desperation reaches levels that sacrifice everything precious rather than watch loved ones die slowly from systematic resource denial through military necessity requiring civilian exploitation. Your decision to accept produces immediate relief mixed with self-loathing as practical survival overrides moral objections to exploiting neighbors whose desperation mirrors your own previous experiences. The transformation from victim to victimizer completes moral education, that warfare provides through systematic corruption of original principles. The grain transfer leaves farmers' family with insufficient supplies, while providing your garrison with extended operational capability through resource acquisition that ensures military effectiveness. The strategic advantage costs human suffering that former agricultural experience makes impossible to ignore, despite practical necessity. Your remaining conscience protests silently as loaded wagons carry away survival margin that could mean death for innocent children whose only crime involved geographic proximity to military operations. The moral corruption deepens as leadership requires increasingly brutal decisions that honor cannot justify through traditional warrior codes. The child's courage. The farmer's son Eric stands barely 12 winters tall, but his voice carries unwavering strength as he calls you tyrant and oathbreaker before your assembled warriors. His fearless accusation echoes through courtyard, where armed men twice his size shift uncomfortably under moral judgment delivered by someone too young to understand political necessity, requiring brutal resource acquisition. Your hand rests on sword hilt, while calculating whether the child's defiance requires immediate correction through violence that would eliminate future resistance problems. The boy's courage shames grown warriors who accepted systematic exploitation without protest, while someone powerless demonstrates honor that experienced fighters abandoned for survival. Magnus the Red whispers urgent counsel about examples that must be set when disrespect spreads beyond acceptable limits, requiring decisive response. His practical assessment weighs child's life against potential encouragement of further civilian resistance that could undermine military authority when harsh measures prove necessary for continued operations. The boy's mother attempts to silence her son through desperate gestures that reveal understanding of how quickly innocent courage transforms into death sentence when powerful men face challenges to authority during desperate circumstances. Her terror contrasts sharply with child's calm acceptance of consequences that speaking truth could produce. Your warriors watch silently as moral authority shifts toward someone too young for military service, while their own compromised honor provides no foundation for challenging civilian courage that exposes systematic cowardice. The child's defiance creates uncomfortable reflection about principles abandoned during survival's harsh education. Eric's next words cut deeper than any blade as he compares your current actions to enemy behavior that originally justified resistance against Raven Feast aggression. His moral clarity reveals how completely warfare corrupted original objectives when systematic exploitation replaces protection of innocent neighbors requiring military assistance. The crowd's murmur grows louder as civilian observers recognize truth in child's assessment of transformation from protective warrior into predatory neighbor whose resource demands exceed enemy taxation levels. Their shifting loyalty demonstrates how quickly moral authority dissolves when actions contradict stated principles about justice and honor. Your threat against the boy's family produces immediate silence, while revealing complete moral bankruptcy that survival required through systematic abandonment of ethical constraints. The intimidation succeeds tactically while failing strategically as civilian population learns that cooperation provides no protection from arbitrary violence. The child's final statement promises that good men will remember your crimes when justice returns to settle accounts with those who chose systematic brutality over honorable death. His prophecy carries weight that military strength cannot overcome when moral judgment operates beyond immediate physical capability. Your warriors disperse without comment, while avoiding eye contact that could reveal their understanding of shameful transformation. that necessity imposed through impossible choices. The silence speaks louder than protests while demonstrating how completely moral corruption spreads through military organizations that abandon ethical foundations for practical survival. Poisoned wells. Dawn reveals the systematic contamination of your primary water source as enemy agents dumped rotting animal carcasses into wells during darkness, while your guards focused on perimeter defense rather than internal sabotage. The putrid stench carries disease potential that could eliminate your garrison more effectively than direct military assault through biological warfare. Your water bearers return from distant springs with reports of similar contamination throughout your territory, where enemy infiltrators worked systematically to eliminate every reliable source of clean drinking water. Their coordinated assault demonstrates understanding that thirst kills faster than hunger when biological necessities become weapons of systematic destruction. Magnus the Red supervises desperate efforts to dig new wells, while calculating how long current water reserves can sustain reduced garrison strength. His grim assessment reveals that dehydration could force surrender within days unless alternative sources prove adequate for minimum survival requirements during continued defensive operations. The choice between potentially deadly contaminated water and certain death from thirst creates impossible calculus where both options lead to systematic destruction of defensive capability. Enemy strategy succeeds through forcing impossible decisions that guarantee failure regardless of tactical choice when basic biological needs become unavailable. Your remaining horses show signs of poisoning from contaminated streams, where they attempted to drink before discovery of systematic sabotage efforts. Their sickness eliminates cavalry advantage, while creating additional burden through caring for valuable animals whose survival represents significant tactical asset, requiring immediate attention. The well digging proceeds slowly through frozen ground, where pickaxe work reveals how thoroughly winter complicates basic survival requirements that enemies exploit through seasonal timing of biological warfare. Each foot of progress costs hours of backbreaking labor, while water reserves diminish toward crisis levels. Civilian refugees fleeing poisoned territory arrive seeking sanctuary that your reduced resources cannot provide without endangering garrison survival through overextension of limited supplies. Their desperation creates additional moral burden when practical necessity requires refusing assistance to innocent families whose only crime involved geographic proximity. Enemy scouts observe your desperate water-gathering expeditions from safe distances while planning ambush attacks on vulnerable supply operations that expose warriors to systematic elimination during essential missions. Their patience creates tactical advantage when survival requirements force predictable behavior patterns, enabling effective targeting. Your decision to drink potentially contaminated water demonstrates leadership through shared risk, while acknowledging that biological warfare could prove more effective than conventional military assault. The calculated gamble reveals how completely desperate circumstances force impossible choices between different methods of systematic destruction. The first symptoms appear within hours, as stomach cramps and fever indicate successful biological attack that could eliminate defensive capability through systematic poisoning rather than honorable combat. Enemy strategy proves effective when survival becomes impossible, regardless of tactical skill or warrior courage. Night of Knives. Midnight silence explodes into screaming chaos as coordinated assassins infiltrate your supposedly impregnable defenses through methods that bypass traditional military protection entirely. The coordinated timing reveals months of careful planning as enemy agents strike simultaneously at multiple targets throughout your hall with professional precision that overwhelms guard rotations. Your most trusted bodyguard, Thorvald the Faithful, dies silently in the corridor outside your chamber, his throat opened by expert blade work that leaves no sound to alert sleeping warriors. The discovery reveals how completely enemy infiltration penetrates defended strongholds when patient killers operate through stealth rather than direct assault. Magnus the Red fights desperately through smoke-filled passages where familiar servants become deadly enemies wielding intimate knowledge of defensive weaknesses your household revealed through years of routine operations. His sword work proves inadequate against numbers and terrain advantage when systematic betrayal transforms trusted allies into coordinated threats. The kitchen becomes slaughterhouse as rebellion spreads through domestic areas where cooking implements transform into weapons wielded by infiltrators who studied your routines through careful observation. Their tactical knowledge exceeds your defensive planning when enemies operate from within previously secure stronghold rather than external siege. Your youngest warriors die screaming in beds they thought secure, while enemy blades find vital points through gaps in mail. That systematic intelligence gathering revealed during reconnaissance operations. The coordinated assault eliminates key personnel through simultaneous strikes that prevent organized defensive response. Blood flows across stone floors as systematic elimination targets specific individuals whose survival threatens enemy objectives through continued resistance capability. The selection demonstrates strategic planning rather than random violence, when assassination serves military goals requiring precise personnel reduction through surgical strikes. Escape routes disappear beneath coordinated assault that anticipates every possible defensive strategy through intelligence gained from infiltrated servants and tortured prisoners. Their tactical awareness exceeds traditional military training when rebellion operates through betrayal rather than conventional battlefield encounter, requiring different defensive approaches. The whole's defensive advantages become liability when enemy agents transform familiar territory into killing ground, where every shadow conceals potential threat. Your architectural planning assumed external assault rather than internal systematic elimination through coordinated infiltration that renders traditional fortification meaningless. Your remaining loyal warriors gather in defensive formation while surrounded by evidence of systematic betrayal that eliminated half your military strength through single night's coordinated operation. Their shocked faces reveal understanding that survival depends on forces beyond individual courage when systematic treachery overwhelms honor-based resistance. The attack's precision eliminates specific personnel while leaving others alive to witness complete penetration of defensive security that failed to prevent systematic assassination of key leadership. Enemy psychological warfare operates through demonstration of capability rather than total destruction when terror serves strategic objectives. The Lost Heir. Your wife's spirit appears in fever dreams with warnings about approaching disaster, while holding phantom child whose death eliminated bloodline continuation that enemies targeted through supernatural warfare, extending beyond physical assault. The spiritual visitation carries weight that rational thought cannot dismiss when grief creates vulnerability to otherworldly communication. The miscarriage details arrive through cryptic messages that reveal how vulva magic reached across mountain distances to target pregnant women whose reproductive capability threatened enemy strategy requiring genetic extinction. Their sorcery proved more effective than military siege when supernatural assault operates through biological targeting of family legacy. Your unborn son's death eliminates hope for dynastic continuation that could justify current suffering through future generations who might restore family honor after present conflicts, resolved through decisive victory or negotiated settlement. The bloodline's extinction makes continued resistance meaningless when survival serves no constructive purpose. Magnus the Red observes your deteriorating mental state with calculation that reveals his understanding of how personal loss affects leadership capability when emotional devastation threatens rational decision, making required for household survival. His loyalty wavers as tragedy demonstrates vulnerability that could compromise everyone depending on your judgment. The phantom child speaks in dreams with voice carrying otherworldly authority that transcends normal communication when spiritual realm provides information unavailable through conventional intelligence gathering. His warnings about approaching betrayal carry prophetic weight that practical wisdom cannot ignore despite supernatural source. Your wife's final letter describes supernatural storm that Vulva sent against family refuge, while coordinating assault on bloodline continuation through targeting innocent women whose only crime involved marriage to marked warrior. The spiritual warfare succeeds where military force failed, through systematic targeting of reproductive capacity. Enemy celebrations reach your ears through scout reports describing Raven Feast, victory feasts that honor successful elimination of genetic threats to their dominance through systematic targeting of family members. Their strategic patience proves superior to warrior honor when long-term planning operates beyond immediate battlefield considerations. The guilt compounds as you recognize how pursuit of warrior status exposed loved ones to dangers they would never face as peaceful farmers living beyond political conflicts that attract vengeful enemies. Your ambition directly caused deaths of everyone who mattered more than territorial acquisition or personal honor. Your hall echoes with silence where family laughter once provided motivation for achievement beyond personal survival when domestic joy gave meaning to territorial defense. The emptiness transforms warrior purpose from protection into simple vengeance that serves no constructive goal beyond perpetuating meaningless conflict. The bloodline's death eliminates enemy motivation for continued warfare, while providing opportunity for negotiated settlement that could preserve remaining followers' lives. Your survival becomes potentially harmful when continued resistance perpetuates conflict that serves no purpose beyond pride, requiring additional innocent casualties. Village of Screams. The enemy settlement burns with roaring flames that consume innocent families whose only crime involved geographic proximity to Raven Feast supporters, requiring systematic elimination through total warfare. Your torch-bearing warriors spread destruction that exceeds any possible military necessity when rage transforms tactical objectives into genocidal fury against helpless civilians. Children's screams echo across burning fields, where systematic murder eliminates future threats through present brutality that destroys moral boundaries separating defensive warfare from systematic atrocity. The sound carries weight that will haunt dreams forever, while marking complete transformation from protector into destroyer of innocent life. Your sword drips with blood from non-combatants who begged for mercy while you carved through families seeking shelter in burning homes. The systematic slaughter exceeds any military objective when personal rage demands payment for losses that innocent civilians cannot possibly compensate through their deaths. Magnus the Red participates silently in destruction that serves vengeance rather than strategic necessity, when grief transforms tactical thinking into emotional brutality, requiring innocent victims. His compliance reveals how completely moral corruption spreads through military organization that abandons ethical constraints for psychological satisfaction. The elderly die screaming in flames, while clutching grandchildren whose futures vanish in smoke that carries scent of burning flesh across valley, where peaceful farming community transforms into funeral pyre. Their terror provides no satisfaction, while revealing how completely warfare corrupts original protective instincts. Women flee through burning grain fields where systematic pursuit ensures that few escape systematic elimination designed to prevent future revenge attempts. The hunting continues beyond military necessity when bloodlust replaces tactical thinking through emotional breakdown that demands maximum civilian casualties. Your warriors demonstrate increasing enthusiasm for civilian slaughter that provides psychological release from months of defensive stress through offensive action against helpless targets. Their transformation from protectors into systematic killers reveals how completely warfare corrupts moral foundation that originally justified resistance against tyrannical enemies. The village livestock burn alongside human victims as total destruction eliminates any possibility of community recovery through survival of productive assets. The systematic thoroughness exceeds military requirements when emotional satisfaction demands complete eradication of everything representing normal, peaceful existence. Smoke rises like sacrificial offering to gods who demand blood payment for personal losses that innocent families cannot compensate through their systematic elimination. The religious justification provides psychological cover for atrocity that serves no strategic purpose beyond temporary emotional relief through inflicted suffering. Your reflection in burning window glass reveals monster that enemies accurately identified through prophetic assessment of character corruption that warfare inevitably produces. The image confirms transformation from protective warrior into systematic destroyer of innocent life through choices that honor could never justify through traditional moral codes. Fear in their eyes. Your remaining warriors gather around the morning fire, with eyes that avoid direct contact while they witness your systematic transformation from respected leader into something that terrifies even hardened fighters accustomed to battlefield brutality. Their shifting postures reveal fear that extends beyond enemy threats toward the monster their commander has become through moral corruption. Magnus the Red speaks carefully when reporting intelligence about enemy movements, his measured words revealing understanding that emotional volatility could result in violence against loyal followers who serve out of obligation rather than genuine respect. His diplomatic caution demonstrates how leadership authority transforms into tyranny when honor abandons practical wisdom. The youngest warriors whisper among themselves about atrocities witnessed during village destruction that exceeded any military necessity through systematic civilian slaughter. Their hushed conversations reveal moral boundaries that your actions violated while creating atmosphere of terror within your own household, where followers fear their commander more than external enemies. Your sword rests casually across your lap during morning briefings, the casual display of weapon serving as subtle threat against anyone questioning tactical decisions that prioritize emotional satisfaction over strategic effectiveness. The intimidation maintains discipline through fear rather than respect when loyalty requires systematic coercion. Eric the Bold requests permission to return home for harvest duties, his transparent excuse revealing desperate desire to escape service that has become nightmare rather than honor. His trembling hands betray terror of refusal that could result in violent punishment for disloyalty during desperate circumstances requiring absolute obedience. The hall's atmosphere grows increasingly oppressive as domestic servants flee rather than risk association with household marked for divine punishment through systematic violation of moral codes. Their departure leaves essential work undone, while demonstrating how completely civilian population abandons warriors whose behavior violates basic human decency. Your orders require increasing threats of violence to ensure compliance when natural leadership authority dissolves under weight of actions that contradict every principle that originally motivated follower loyalty. The systematic intimidation replaces respect with terror when moral corruption destroys foundation for legitimate command. Food tastes of ash, during solitary meals where former companions avoid your presence through transparent excuses about essential duties requiring immediate attention elsewhere. The isolation deepens as social bonds dissolve under pressure of witnessing systematic transformation into something beyond redemption through conventional means. Your laughter carries edge of madness that freezes conversation when dark humor replaces normal human emotional response to tragedy and violence. The psychological deterioration becomes obvious to everyone witnessing systematic breakdown of personality structure that warfare destroyed through impossible moral choices. Sleep brings no rest when guilt manifests as phantom voices demanding justice for innocent civilians whose screams echo through dreams that provide no escape from consequences of actions that honor could never justify. The psychological torment proves that some moral boundaries cannot be crossed without permanent damage to human conscience. The Devil's Bargain. The wealthy merchant Gunnar Goldarm arrives with armed caravan that represents prosperity beyond current territorial conflicts, while offering partnership that could restore financial stability through systematic exploitation of wartime scarcity. His calculating smile reveals understanding that desperate warriors make reliable partners when survival requires abandoning ethical constraints for immediate profit. Your territorial control creates opportunity for systematic tribute collection from trading expeditions that must pass through lands your reduced military force still commands despite political isolation. The merchant's proposal transforms military assets into profitable extortion operation when conventional warfare proves unsustainable through resource limitations. Magnus the Red advocates accepting partnership that provides steady income stream while maintaining fiction of legitimate taxation rather than highway robbery. His practical assessment reveals how completely desperation transforms protective warriors into systematic parasites, living off civilian commerce through organized criminal activity, disguised as territorial authority. The tribute demands exceed reasonable taxation levels while remaining below threshold that would force merchants to seek alternative routes through more dangerous territory. Your calculation demonstrates understanding that successful extortion requires balance between profitable exploitation and sustainable business relationships that generate continued revenue. Gunnar's guards prove surprisingly well trained as former soldiers seeking employment that provides steady wages without requiring loyalty to doomed causes. Their professional competence reveals how military experience translates into private security when conventional warfare offers diminishing prospects for survival or advancement through honorable service. The contract negotiations proceed through careful language that maintains legal fiction of legitimate territorial taxation while establishing systematic revenue sharing that benefits both parties. The partnership transforms military control into commercial enterprise when survival requires adapting warrior skills toward profitable civilian exploitation. Your first tribute collection succeeds smoothly as merchant cooperation eliminates resistance that could justify increased violence while providing steady income that sustains reduced garrison strength. The systematic approach proves more effective than random banditry when organized exploitation replaces desperate survival attempts. Enemy agents observe tribute operations from safe distances while calculating whether commercial partnerships strengthen your position through improved resources or create vulnerabilities through predictable behavior patterns. Their intelligence gathering reveals how completely civilian activities expose military operations to systematic analysis. The merchant's casual wealth demonstrates opportunities available through systematic commerce, while your reduced circumstances reveal costs of choosing honor over practical survival strategies. His prosperity contrasts sharply with territorial destruction that warfare produced through adherence to warrior codes that civilian success transcends completely. Your transformation from protective leader into systematic extortionist completes education that warfare provides about moral flexibility required for survival when ethical constraints become unaffordable luxury. The criminal partnership represents final abandonment of principles that originally justified resistance against tyrannical enemies. Old money. The merchant's guards die screaming in mud, turned crimson by arterial spray, as your desperate assault overwhelms professional training through superior numbers and intimate knowledge of local terrain advantages. Their death throes echo across trading ground, where commercial negotiation transforms into systematic robbery when tribute demands exceed merchant willingness to pay. Magnus the Red leads flanking attack that traps enemy survivors against rocky outcropping, where escape becomes impossible while surrender offers no guarantee of survival. His tactical expertise enables systematic elimination of resistance while securing cargo that represents months of accumulated wealth through successful trading operations. Your sword work demonstrates skills learned through years of combat experience, while merchant guards reveal training focused on deterrence rather than actual warfare against determined opponents. The combat disparity becomes obvious when professional warriors encounter civilian security forces unprepared for systematic military assault. The caravan's wealth exceeds expectations as loaded wagons contain exotic goods worth fortunes in stable markets, while providing immediate resources for garrison maintenance. Your systematic inventory reveals how completely commercial success surpasses territorial agriculture when trade routes generate prosperity beyond local production capacity. Blood soaks into valuable silk fabrics as systematic looting proceeds through cargo holds containing luxury items that peaceful commerce accumulated through patient international relationships. The destruction represents cultural vandalism that extends beyond simple theft when warrior brutality eliminates artistic achievements requiring generations of skilled craftsmanship. Enemy scouts document massacre from hidden positions while calculating how systematic banditry affects regional commerce that previously supported neutral territories. Their observation reveals political consequences when criminal activity transforms local warrior into regional threat, requiring coordinated response from neighboring authorities. Your warriors demonstrate increasing enthusiasm for profitable violence that provides immediate rewards compared to defensive warfare offering only survival without advancement. Their transformation from protectors into systematic bandits reveals how completely economic necessity corrupts military organizations when legitimate authority fails to provide adequate compensation. The merchant's final words curse your bloodline with supernatural vengeance that trading spirits will exact for systematic violation of commercial neutrality. His dying prophecy carries weight that rational thought cannot dismiss when spiritual consequences follow criminal actions that violate fundamental codes governing civilian commerce. Gunnar Goldarm's death eliminates valuable partnership opportunity while creating permanent enemy among trading networks that coordinate information about dangerous territories requiring military escort. The short-term gain produces long-term isolation when commercial relationships depend on trust that systematic violence destroys completely. Your decision to execute surrendering guards demonstrates complete abandonment of warrior honor that originally distinguished legitimate military action from common banditry. The systematic murder eliminates witnesses while marking final transformation into criminal leadership that operates beyond traditional moral constraints governing civilized warfare. echoes in empty halls. Your footsteps echo through corridors where 50 warriors once gathered for evening meals while discussing tactical planning and shared memories of battlefield victories earned through honorable combat. The emptiness amplifies every sound, while silence fills spaces where masculine laughter and weapons practice once provided soundtrack for legitimate military brotherhood. Magnus the Red sits alone at table, designed for 20 companions, while counting remaining supplies that must sustain garrison, reduced to a handful of desperate survivors. His solitary presence emphasizes how completely systematic attrition eliminated military strength that once commanded respect throughout 3 districts through legitimate warrior capability. The hearth burns with insufficient warmth as firewood stocks dwindle toward crisis levels, requiring dangerous expeditions into enemy territory where ambush awaits anyone seeking basic survival resources. The cold penetrates stone walls, while demonstrating how completely siege conditions transform comfortable stronghold into barely habitable shelter. Your bedchamber feels cavernous without domestic presence that provided meaning beyond military achievement when family relationships gave purpose to territorial defense. The isolation emphasizes how completely warfare destroyed everything worth protecting, while leaving only empty victory monuments marking systematic destruction of human connections. Weapons hang untouched on walls, where absent warriors once maintained equipment through daily practice sessions that built camaraderie alongside combat effectiveness. The abandoned gear represents lives lost through systematic attrition, while serving reminder of military strength that political warfare eliminated through careful planning. Kitchen areas stand vacant as cooking staff fled rather than risk association with household marked for divine punishment through systematic violation of moral codes. The domestic abandonment forces remaining warriors into unfamiliar tasks, while revealing how completely civilian support enables military operations. Your great chair faces empty benches where loyal followers once gathered for tactical briefings and judicial proceedings that maintained order through legitimate authority. The vacant assembly emphasizes how completely leadership isolation eliminates effectiveness when command requires willing cooperation rather than terrorized submission. Storage chambers reveal depleted supplies that once supported extended military operations through careful accumulation of resources necessary for siege defense. The scarcity demonstrates how completely systematic destruction eliminated logistical foundation, enabling independent resistance against superior enemy forces. Messages arrive sporadically from distant allies who maintain careful neutrality while avoiding direct support that could invite systematic retaliation. Their cautious communication reveals political isolation that accompanies military weakness when former partnerships become liability rather than strategic advantage. The hall's acoustic properties amplify whispered conversations among remaining warriors who discuss escape options rather than tactical planning for continued resistance. Their hushed desperation reveals how completely morale collapse precedes military defeat when hope disappears from desperate survival calculations. The mediator's arrival. Thorvald's Skull Splitter's procession arrives with ceremonial fanfare that masks calculated political maneuvering behind judicial theater designed to eliminate potential rivals through legal mechanisms. His retinue demonstrates overwhelming force, while maintaining fiction of peaceful mediation that serves predetermined agenda, requiring your systematic destruction through apparently legitimate judgment. The chieftain's casual examination of your reduced defenses reveals tactical assessment disguised as diplomatic curiosity, while his calculating eyes evaluate remaining military assets for potential threat level. His professional observation demonstrates how completely political manipulation operates through intelligence gathering that appears conversational rather than systematic reconnaissance. Your formal greeting requires careful protocol that acknowledges superior authority while avoiding admission of guilt that could justify immediate seizure of remaining territorial assets. The diplomatic balance becomes crucial when survival depends on legal technicalities that skilled manipulation could exploit for complete dispossession. Magnus the Red observes proceedings with understanding that current weakness invites predatory attention from neighbors who prefer legal theft to military conquest when systematic corruption provides easier path toward territorial acquisition. His defensive preparations reveal awareness that mediation serves political agenda rather than actual justice. Thorvald's opening statements establish legal framework that presupposes guilt while offering theoretical opportunity for defense that predetermined verdict will ignore completely. His judicial language maintains fiction of fair proceedings while ensuring that systematic bias produces desired outcome through careful manipulation of traditional legal processes. The compensation demands exceed your entire territorial wealth by margins that make compliance impossible through any conceivable resource mobilization effort. Enemy calculation ensures that legal remedy becomes disguised confiscation while maintaining appearance of justice rather than systematic theft through judicial corruption that serves political objectives. Your defensive arguments sound hollow against months of careful documentation that transforms routine territorial disputes into evidence of chronic criminality requiring immediate correction. The systematic preparation reveals how completely political warfare operates through legal manipulation that civilian observers cannot distinguish from legitimate judicial process. Witness testimony provides predetermined narrative that justifies territorial seizure while maintaining fiction of democratic participation in justice delivery. The coordinated statements reveal extensive coaching that produces apparently authentic evidence, supporting conclusions that political necessity demanded regardless of actual circumstances. The chieftain's verdict demonstrates how easily legal systems serve power when traditional protections fail against organized subversion of judicial process. His authoritative pronouncement carries weight of law while serving personal political agenda that eliminates potential rivals through systematic exploitation of institutional weaknesses. Your appeal options theoretically exist through higher authority that Thorvald's influence controls completely through political networking that extends throughout legal hierarchy. The systematic corruption reveals how justice becomes meaningless when power operates beyond traditional constraints governing civilized dispute resolution. Wisdom's price. The impossible compensation requirements specify territorial transfer that eliminates your family's ancestral holdings while distributing wealth among political supporters who enabled systematic destruction through judicial manipulation. The legal document transforms generations of achievement into a reward system for collaborative participation in organized dispossession. Your signature on surrender documents acknowledges defeat while accepting exile that preserves life in exchange for complete abandonment of everything your bloodline accumulated through centuries of honorable service. The negotiated settlement demonstrates how survival requires accepting systematic humiliation when resistance promises only death. Magnus the Red receives generous terms for switching allegiance to victorious faction, while his practical wisdom chooses survival over doomed loyalty to defeated leadership. His calculated betrayal reveals how completely political necessity overrides personal relationships when continuing association threatens individual prospects for advancement. The territorial handover proceeds with ceremonial efficiency that maintains legal fiction, while Thorvald's supporters claim ancestral lands through systematic redistribution disguised as justice. Their celebration reveals how completely political warfare serves economic objectives when territorial acquisition justifies elaborate legal theater. Your exile begins immediately as armed escort ensures compliance with judicial verdict that eliminates potential resistance through supervised departure. The systematic removal prevents any opportunity for rallying remaining supporters who might attempt futile resistance against overwhelming political authority. The road leads toward uncertain future, where reputation as defeated rebel creates permanent liability, requiring constant vigilance against bounty hunters seeking easy profit. Your transformation from territorial lord to hunted outlaw demonstrates how completely political failure eliminates all previous social standing. Former allies avoid contact while maintaining careful neutrality that protects their own interests from association with marked exile, whose presence could invite systematic retaliation. The social isolation emphasizes how completely defeat spreads beyond immediate participants to encompass anyone offering assistance to fallen leadership. Your remaining possessions fit easily into single travel pack, while representing total wealth accumulated after losing everything through systematic political manipulation. The material reduction demonstrates how quickly prosperity vanishes when legal systems serve predetermined outcomes rather than actual justice through impartial evaluation. The escort's professional courtesy maintains dignity during systematic humiliation, while preventing any dramatic gesture that could inspire legendary resistance. Their efficient process reveals extensive experience with political elimination that operates through legal mechanisms rather than simple violence. Your final glimpse of ancestral territory shows smoke rising from settlements where new management implements changes that serve political objectives rather than local welfare. The transformation begins immediately while demonstrating how completely territorial control enables systematic exploitation of civilian population through legitimized authority. The Puppet Master. The revelation strikes like lightning as Thorvald's casual comment reveals 3-year planning that orchestrated your family's destruction from the original insult that sparked Raven Feast vengeance. His satisfied smile demonstrates how completely political manipulation operates beyond warrior comprehension when honor becomes weapon that enemies exploit through systematic psychological warfare designed to trigger predictable responses. Your understanding crystallizes around scattered evidence that seemed coincidental, but reveals coordinated strategy spanning years of careful preparation. The Raven Feast clan's sudden aggression followed Thorvald's private negotiations, while your isolation resulted from systematic bribery and threat campaigns that political power enabled through superior resources. Magnus the Red's betrayal becomes obvious as his tactical advice consistently led toward disadvantageous positions, while his intelligence gathering served enemy interests rather than defensive requirements. His calculated loyalty masked systematic espionage that provided crucial information, enabling successful siege operations and assassination attempts. The merchant partnerships that provided temporary prosperity originated through Thorvald's commercial network, while subsequent violence eliminated witnesses to systematic manipulation. Your transformation into highway bandit served predetermined agenda, requiring criminal behavior that justified legal intervention through judicial process that appeared legitimate. Enemy tactical knowledge exceeded normal intelligence capabilities through systematic infiltration that political authority enabled across multiple households simultaneously. Their coordinated assault succeeded because superior planning anticipated every defensive strategy, while preparing countermeasures that overwhelmed traditional military responses. Your family's targeting through supernatural warfare resulted from vulva employed by political authority rather than spontaneous Raven Feast revenge. The systematic spiritual assault eliminated bloodline continuation while appearing to result from ancient feud rather than contemporary political necessity requiring genetic extinction. The legal proceedings followed predetermined script while maintaining fiction of democratic justice that civilian observers accepted without question. Thorvald's judicial manipulation succeeded through systematic corruption that extended throughout traditional institutions designed to protect against arbitrary authority. Your warrior education emphasized honor and courage while ignoring political realities that determine actual survival in complex social environments. The systematic ignorance enabled manipulation through predictable responses that political expertise exploited for territorial acquisition disguised as conflict resolution. The entire blood feud represented elaborate theater designed to eliminate potential rival while maintaining appearance of legitimate governance rather than systematic elimination of inconvenient authority. Your destruction served political consolidation that required removing independent leadership through apparently justified legal process. Honor becomes luxury that only naive leaders can afford when political survival requires understanding systematic manipulation that operates beyond traditional warrior codes. Your education proves inadequate for complex reality, where wisdom matters more than courage, when enemies prefer corruption to honest combat. The Last Stand. Ragnar Ironshield dies with sword in hand, while defending your retreat through mountain passes where loyal warrior makes final sacrifice, enabling your escape from overwhelming enemy forces. His blood steams in snow while understanding that honor without wisdom destroys everyone who follows doomed leadership into impossible circumstances requiring superhuman courage. The ambush succeeds through superior numbers and intimate knowledge of terrain that systematic intelligence gathering provided enemy forces. Your remaining warband faces annihilation, while political warfare proves more effective than military strategy when systematic preparation overwhelms improvised defensive responses requiring impossible tactical coordination. Your sword work demonstrates skills learned through years of combat experience, while enemy coordination reveals training that exceeds individual warrior capability through organized military planning. The combat disparity becomes obvious when professional forces encounter desperate survivors whose reduced strength cannot sustain prolonged engagement. Magnus the Red falls beneath enemy spears, while his final words curse your leadership that brought destruction upon everyone foolish enough to maintain loyalty beyond rational survival calculations. His death eliminates final tactical advisor whose practical wisdom could have prevented systematic disaster through political compromise. The mountain trail becomes killing ground, where enemy archers command high positions that eliminate escape routes, while systematic pursuit ensures that few survivors reach potential sanctuary. Their tactical superiority demonstrates how completely political planning anticipated military responses while preparing overwhelming countermeasures. Your horse collapses from exhaustion, while arrows whistle overhead in deadly rain that forces desperate scramble for cover among rocks that provide minimal protection. The systematic archery reveals professional military training rather than random pursuit when political authority commands superior resources. Blood flows freely as remaining loyal warriors die one by one while protecting retreat that serves no strategic purpose beyond personal survival. Their sacrifice demonstrates devotion that systematic political manipulation exploited through emotional manipulation that honor-bound followers cannot resist despite obvious futility. The final loyal follower breathes his last while clutching sword that proved inadequate against overwhelming numbers and superior tactical position. His death eliminates last witness to systematic destruction that political warfare achieved through careful planning rather than battlefield superiority. Your isolation becomes complete as enemy forces withdraw after confirming systematic elimination of military threat that independent leadership represented. Their professional efficiency demonstrates how completely political objectives determine tactical requirements when territorial consolidation requires specific personnel reduction. The mountain silence carries weight of accumulated failure, while demonstrating how completely honor without wisdom leads to systematic destruction of everything valued. Your survival serves no purpose beyond providing living example of consequences that await leaders who choose emotional responses over political calculation. Hunter becomes hunted. Winter forest provides minimal shelter as you flee through territory where every settlement offers bounty for your capture, while former subjects become potential enemies seeking profitable betrayal. The systematic manhunt demonstrates how completely political defeat transforms respected leadership into hunted criminal whose presence threatens anyone offering assistance. Your breath creates visible clouds in frigid air, while demonstrating how completely physical condition deteriorates under constant stress and inadequate nutrition. The survival requirements exceed warrior training when systematic pursuit eliminates rest opportunities necessary for maintaining combat effectiveness against professional hunters. Enemy tracking skills prove superior to evasion techniques, while their systematic coordination ensures that escape routes remain under constant surveillance. Their persistent pursuit demonstrates resources that political authority commands, while independent fugitives lack organizational support necessary for effective countermeasures. Food becomes scarce as winter conditions eliminate natural sustenance, while systematic isolation prevents access to civilian supplies that fear of retaliation makes unavailable. The starvation threat proves more immediate than capture when biological requirements exceed available resources through territorial control. Your equipment deteriorates rapidly under harsh conditions, while replacement becomes impossible through lack of civilian cooperation that political influence eliminates completely. The material degradation demonstrates how completely systematic isolation affects basic survival capability when normal support networks become unavailable. Sleep comes in stolen moments between movement required for avoiding systematic patrol schedules that enemy coordination maintains throughout territorial boundaries. The exhaustion accumulates while demonstrating how persistent pursuit eliminates rest necessary for maintaining rational decision-making capability. Former allies avoid contact while maintaining careful neutrality that protects personal interests from association with marked fugitive. Their practical wisdom chooses survival over sentiment when continued friendship could invite systematic retaliation from victorious political authority. The bounty increases weekly as political propaganda emphasizes threat that independent leadership represents to established order, requiring systematic elimination. Your transformation from territorial lord to wanted criminal demonstrates how completely narrative control enables political manipulation of civilian opinion. Enemy agents infiltrate every settlement while coordinating intelligence gathering that prevents any possibility of establishing secure refuge. Their systematic network operates beyond individual capability when political resources enable comprehensive surveillance throughout regional territory. Your reflection in frozen stream reveals physical deterioration that months of systematic pursuit produced through constant stress and inadequate nutrition. The transformation from confident warrior to desperate fugitive emphasizes how completely political defeat affects every aspect of personal existence when survival becomes primary concern. The small corpse. Your youngest son's body lies frozen in the snow-filled cave, where winter claimed his innocent life, while you counted political victories that meant nothing when family protection failed through systematic leadership inadequacy. His small fingers clutched torn fabric from your cloak, while demonstrating how completely warrior honor destroyed everyone who depended on your judgment for survival. The child's final words echo in memory as he asked why enemies wanted to hurt Papa while understanding failed to penetrate innocent mind, seeking simple explanations for complex hatred. His confusion reveals how completely adult conflicts destroy childhood peace when political warfare extends beyond combatants to encompass innocent family members whose only crime involved genetic connection. Your wife's frozen corpse provides silent accusation about protection promises that systematic political manipulation rendered meaningless when superior enemies operated beyond traditional warrior capability. Her death eliminates final emotional anchor, while demonstrating how completely honor-bound decisions destroyed everything worth protecting through systematic miscalculation of actual threats. The cave's darkness conceals other small bodies, where refugee families sought shelter from systematic pursuit that eliminated civilian populations through coordinated military operations. Their presence emphasizes how completely political warfare spreads beyond immediate participants to encompass innocent bystanders whose survival becomes impossible. Starvation marks each corpse with evidence of prolonged suffering that adequate leadership could have prevented through different tactical decisions. The systematic failure demonstrates how honor without wisdom creates responsibility for consequences that extend far beyond personal survival when others depend on competent judgment. Your tears freeze instantly in Arctic air, while grief overwhelms practical survival requirements that demand continued movement despite emotional devastation. The psychological breakdown threatens remaining life when systematic loss eliminates every motivation for continued existence beyond simple biological persistence. Cannibalism becomes necessary as remaining supplies disappear, while winter conditions eliminate any possibility of natural sustenance through foraging efforts. The moral boundary dissolves when survival requirements exceed ethical constraints that civilized existence normally maintains through adequate resource availability. Enemy bodies provide only available protein source, while systematic hunting eliminates access to normal food supplies that civilian cooperation once provided. The consumption marks final descent into savagery that survival imposed through circumstances that honor-bound leadership created despite intentions toward family protection. Your hands shake as human flesh provides nutrition necessary for continued survival, while moral revulsion fights against biological necessity, requiring any available sustenance. The systematic degradation completes transformation from protective warrior into desperate survivor, whose choices violate every principle that originally motivated territorial defense. The child's memory haunts every bite as cannibalistic necessity demonstrates how completely leadership failure extends consequences beyond immediate decision-makers to encompass innocent dependents. His death serves as permanent reminder that honor without wisdom destroys everyone who trusts warrior capability for adequate protection. The Reckoning. You sit alone in the ruins of your ancestral hall where charred timbers create skeletal monument to systematic destruction that political warfare achieved through superior planning and patient execution. The silence carries weight of accumulated failure, while demonstrating how completely honor without wisdom leads to total annihilation of everything valued. Magnus the Red's frozen corpse provides company among scattered bones of loyal followers whose deaths resulted from systematic leadership inadequacy rather than enemy superiority. Their sacrifice demonstrates devotion that honor-bound followers maintained despite obvious futility when emotional loyalty overcame rational survival calculations. The count begins with family members whose deaths resulted directly from decisions that prioritized warrior honor over practical safety considerations. Your wife and children died because political naivety exposed them to supernatural warfare that superior enemies coordinated through resources that independent leadership lacked completely. Your sworn warriors number 37 frozen corpses, whose loyalty cost everything while serving no constructive purpose beyond validating personal honor through systematic destruction. Their devotion enabled continued resistance that served pride rather than strategic objectives when surrender could have preserved innocent lives. Civilian casualties extend beyond counting as systematic warfare, eliminated entire communities whose only crime involved geographic proximity to political conflicts they never chose to join. The collateral damage demonstrates how completely honor-bound decisions create responsibility for consequences that extend throughout regional population. Enemy casualties provide no satisfaction when their deaths resulted from leadership choices that transformed protective warrior into systematic destroyer of innocent life. The violence accomplished nothing beyond validating emotional responses that political manipulation exploited through predictable warrior psychology. Your reflection reveals monster that enemies accurately identified through prophetic assessment of character corruption that warfare inevitably produces when honor operates without wisdom. The transformation confirms systematic failure that destroyed moral foundation while serving no constructive purpose beyond personal satisfaction through inflicted suffering. The mathematical calculation proves devastating as costs exceed any possible benefit when systematic accounting includes all consequences that honor-bound leadership produced. Your territorial defense resulted in complete destruction of everything worth protecting while enriching enemies through systematic elimination of potential rivals. Political manipulation succeeded because warrior education emphasized courage and honor, while ignoring systematic thinking that complex survival requires. The ignorance enabled exploitation through emotional responses that political expertise anticipated while preparing countermeasures that overwhelmed traditional military capability. The final lesson emerges through painful recognition that true strength requires wisdom alongside courage when survival depends on understanding political reality rather than emotional satisfaction. Your education proves inadequate for complex world, where honor becomes weapon that enemies exploit through systematic psychological manipulation designed to trigger predictable destruction. Unlikely redemption. The fishing boat appears through morning mist like divine intervention while you struggle through icy waters that could claim your life within moments of submersion. The simple vessel represents salvation from systematic destruction that political warfare achieved through superior planning, while honor-bound resistance served predetermined agenda requiring your elimination. Captain Egil Stone, Heart recognizes your identity despite physical deterioration that months of systematic pursuit produced through constant stress and inadequate nutrition. His weathered face reveals understanding that accompanies simple wisdom, while demonstrated mercy transcends political considerations that complicate territorial relationships. Your desperate climb aboard succeeds through strength reserves that survival desperation provides when death becomes immediate alternative to continued existence. The rescue eliminates systematic pursuit while providing opportunity for reflection about choices that destroyed everything valued through honor-bound leadership that served no constructive purpose. The fisherman's simple lifestyle demonstrates prosperity that honest labor achieves without requiring systematic exploitation of neighbors through political manipulation or military force. His contentment contrasts sharply with territorial ambitions that produced only destruction while serving personal pride rather than community welfare. Egil's crew accepts your presence without judgment, while providing basic necessities that systematic isolation eliminated through political defeat. Their practical kindness reveals human decency that survives beyond territorial conflicts when simple survival requires cooperation rather than systematic competition for limited resources. Your hands find purpose in mending fishing nets, where patient work creates useful results through cooperative effort rather than systematic destruction that warfare demands. The honest labor provides psychological healing while demonstrating how productive activity serves constructive goals that honor-bound violence cannot achieve. The crew's acceptance demonstrates forgiveness that transcends political boundaries when human need overrides territorial loyalties that systematic manipulation exploits. Their mercy reveals wisdom that simple people possess while educated warriors remain ignorant about fundamental human relationships requiring mutual assistance. Your transformation begins through recognition that true power lies in service to others rather than dominion over territorial assets that political warfare ultimately controls. The simple wisdom emerges through practical experience, while demonstrating how completely honor without service destroys everything touched through systematic miscalculation. Enemy smoke rises in distant horizon, where victorious forces continue systematic destruction that political consolidation requires through elimination of independent leadership. Their success demonstrates how completely territorial control serves predetermined agenda, while individual resistance proves meaningless against superior organization. The fishing boat's gentle motion provides first peaceful rest in months, while demonstrating how completely simple existence transcends political complexity that destroyed everything valued. Your survival serves potential redemption when wisdom finally emerges through painful education that systematic failure provided despite devastating personal cost to everyone who trusted warrior capability for adequate protection. Congratulations, weary warrior. You survived the most brutal chapter yet of surviving Viking Age Iceland, enduring the systematic destruction of everything you held dear through honor-bound choices that enemies exploited with ruthless political cunning. You've watched your sworn men abandon you, your family die from supernatural warfare, and your own moral compass shatter as desperate survival transformed noble protector into the very monster your enemies claimed you always were. Through 30 days of blood feuds, legal manipulation, and spiritual assault, you've learned that honor without wisdom destroys not just yourself, but everyone foolish enough to follow you into the abyss. But your journey through Iceland's merciless hierarchy reaches its ultimate test in Episode 5, The Chieftain's Crown, where you'll ascend to the pinnacle of power itself, commanding jarls and territories, wielding life and death authority over thousands, and discovering that absolute power brings absolute isolation. From the warrior's hard-learned lesson about political cunning, you'll face the chieftain's ultimate paradox, that the higher you climb, the farther you have to fall, and that true leadership may require sacrificing everything you've become to protect what truly matters. If this epic saga of survival and transformation has gripped you, smash that like button to help others discover this historically rich journey through Viking Age brutality. Subscribe to join our growing community of medieval survivors and ring that notification bell so you never miss the next installment of humanity's most unforgiving climb to power. The chieftain's throne awaits, but will the crown's weight crush the man, or will wisdom finally triumph where honor failed? Episode 5 beckons with the ultimate test of what it truly means to rule in the savage world of Viking Iceland.